Hello!
Hi.
Welcome to Hotpot Talks as part of the panel series for Bitter Orientals Yellow Peril Unmasked. My name is Jen Sunshine here with my dear friend and longtime creative partner David Ng, and together we are the co-artistic directors of Love Intersections, a media arts collective that produces intersectional and intergenerational stories from underrepresented communities. We're also founding members of the Vancouver Artists Labor Union Cooperative, also known as Value Co-op, which is an artist-run worker cooperative whose goal is to provide flexible living wage income to artists. Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that we are gathered here today from the unceded and ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. Part of our work as ongoing labor activists and queer artists on unceded territories means working in solidarity with ongoing Indigenous struggles for sovereignty, decolonization, reparations, and land back. Hotpot Talks emerged during the pandemic from our collaboration with the Lim Association in Chinatown, historically a neighborhood of Chinese railroad laborers who were brought to settle Indigenous territories as part of the ongoing colonial project.
Yeah, so why Hotpot Talks? As Jen mentioned, Value Co-op has a studio in the Lim Sai Hor Khao Mak Association building in Vancouver's Chinatown. And when Value Co-op, when we signed the lease to that studio, we had long conversations about the role of artists in spaces like Chinatown, and particularly the role that artists have played in gentrifying neighborhoods like Chinatown. And so over the past 2 years, we've been developing a reciprocal relationship with the Lim Association elders. And that project was really centered around trying to connect people to the Chinatown community, and also issues that affect Chinatown, such as diaspora, xenophobia, systemic racism, intersectional solidarity building, and Chinatown futurities. Bitter Oriental's Yellow Peril Unmasked grew out of this collaboration, and also out of a desire to address anti-Asian racism in real and tangible ways, and to offer tools for audiences to take these learnings back into communities. So some of you may have seen that beautiful graphic that we designed for Bitter Orientals that was designed by Jay Kabalu. And we're really excited because we made all of this merch. So stickers, we have magnets, and we also have this amazing tote bag. We were going to be giving these away at our opening party, which unfortunately we had to postpone because of Omicron. So instead, we're giving it away. So so due to COVID, we had to not have in-person events. So we're going to give away a whole bunch of our merch today. So if you head to the Value Co-op or Love Intersections Instagram pages or Instagram accounts, tag three of your friends on one of our posts, share a post to your story, and you'll be entered to win either a sticker or magnet. And the grand prize will be one of these very limited edition tote bags. Oh, we have so much merch also. You also, some of you may have noticed some of the special red envelopes that appeared in our, thank you, Jen, in our intro video. We designed these Defund the Police red envelopes that are on sale right now to raise funds for the Defund 604 network. So the link is going to be dropped in the chat right now. And yeah, head to valuecoop.ca to support Defund 604 network and their work.
So before we begin, we want to thank our funders, Canadian Heritage, Canada Council for the Arts, BC Arts Council, and we, of course, want to thank our incredible team, Ava and Cameron, who is helping out in the back end, and they help make Hot Pot Talks a reality. So without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce our guest today. Tonye Aganaba is a queer and non-binary multidisciplinary artist, musician, and facilitator living on the unceded ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. They proudly trace their roots to the lands of the Ijaw and Shona speaking peoples, colonially today known as Nigeria and Zimbabwe. Tonye's music, shows, and workshops are connected, soulful, and intimate experiences, soaked in a fresh kind of vulnerability that we all hunger for. When Tonye is not on stage or in the studio, you can find them at Ethos Lab, co-creating a vibrant community and facilitating arts-based learning and leadership programs for youth, or organizing with the Defund 604 network in pursuit of the abolition of police, prisons, and the end of state violence and repression. Welcome, Tonye.
Hi, Tanya.
Hi, folks. So
Hi.
lovely to see you. Thank you so much for having me and for the glowing introduction.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you, to talk to you. I thought, Jen, why don't we set up the conversation, especially around how we introduced and the genesis of Bitter Orientals, and why we wanted to have this conversation on abolition. So I thought maybe we would start, since I have all this fabulous merch beside me. So I thought maybe we'll start with the title Bitter Orientals. As I mentioned, this project we've been doing with the Limb Association, which predated COVID. I guess you could say, as COVID progressed and as we saw this spike in anti-Asian racism, it kind of took new shapes. And all of a sudden, what was a project about engaging people about systemic racism, all of a sudden had many new nuances. But Jen and I started seeing some kind of very, I think, frustrating organizing, very liberal organizing that was around hate crime legislation around and the anti-Asian violence, but also very sort of like demands for recognition of anti-Asian racism as if it was exceptional to and separate to anti-blackness and colonialism. And so that's why we're bitter, is because it's this. I mean, we're bitter because of the, and this is not to sidestep the fact that there's a lot of pain in a lot of Asian communities right now because of the violence, but also like this type of allegiance to the structures, aka the state and police and prisons, is a part of the problem. And so we really wanted to front and center this conversation so that, especially in a place like Vancouver, which has a lot of challenges in this topic,
Oh, yes.
really wanted to sort of center that conversation as we're thinking about these themes of anti-Asian racism.
I mean, I'm by no means an expert on this, and
Me neither.
admittedly, in like our first episode a couple of weeks ago with Angela McDougall, I shared my vulnerabilities around this topic of abolition. This was something that David and I, in our kind of artistic and professional trajectory, have only just arrived this year to really kind of interrogating our own ethics, our own responsibilities as activists, as artists. And so, I'm not an expert on this. And so part of my kind of selfish goal for myself personally is to practice how to create and produce a kind of language that is accessible so that I can have this conversation, this difficult conversation with my own parents, for example, or with my peers. So there's that. And then on the other end of things, I just want to say, Tanya, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I don't think we've even really had this done in like a formal kind of setting, but I just want to share something, the story of how I met. I actually was hanging out with my best friend, Melanie Matining, earlier this morning, and I was talking about how I'm doing this Hotpot Talks and you're our guest. And she was like, yeah, I know Tanya too. And I was like, and we're both kind of talking about how we ran into you because you and I think we used to live in Mount Pleasant, and
Yep.
we were in the same neighborhood, and I would see you everywhere. And I was like, first of all, who is that babe? With just so visible and just so bright and vibrant. And I've always just had such an affinity from afar, from distance. And I can't quite remember how we came to have a conversation. I think we like met up at a coffee shop or both found ourselves at a coffee shop. I mean, we just sat down and like had a conversation. So my memory's a little fuzzy on that, but I've always just had such love, tremendous love for you. Of course, then over the years, we would run into each other again. We had coffee and we just would hang out when those opportunities arise. It's just such an incredible journey. And so I'm very excited to start this conversation with you today.
Me too. Let me just start this whole conversation by revealing myself. I've been in love with you also from afar for many, many years. And I'll never forget the one day I plucked the courage to hit you up and be like, can we just like sit down and talk and like have a coffee? And you were so gracious and you invited me to your home and we had a lovely time. And yeah, I've just always been a huge fan of what it is that you're both doing with Love Intersections and providing such an incredible opportunity for people to have these big complex conversations through art, through creativity, through intergenerational learning. And I'm a huge fan of that. And it's what is actually needed in these maddening times. So to answer your first question about, how why is abolition so integral to this fight that we are all engaged in against white supremacy and colonialism and racism? And really, when we're talking to our elders, I struggle to have these conversations with my elders too. But what I find really works is reminding people that it is nourishing interpersonal relationships that actually create a sense of safety. The police are a tool that has been used incorrectly for many, well, actually, it depends who you talk to. Some people say incorrectly, some people say working as advertised. But, the police have been used as the catch-all tool for every single public ill that we have in front of us. But really, when it comes down to it, what actually gets to the root cause of all of these issues that we're seeing in our community, whether that is visible homelessness, whether it's people that are problematically using substances out in public spaces, or whatever problem that one of these NIMBYs has with people just being poor in public. Really, what counters that is full, nourishing relationships, having access to housing, having access to healthcare of all kinds, not pretending that we have a social net that works for everybody when it really, really doesn't. So when I'm talking to folks about abolition, that's the angle that I'm approaching them from. That it's about actually, I think Ruth Wilson Gilmore is an abolitionist that I always, throw back to because they're just brilliant, a geographer, an educator, a longtime activist, and founder of Creative Interventions. Check that out. They always say that abolition it's not about destruction, it's about the creation of life-affirming structures. It's about making sure that if your neighbor needs food, that they don't have to walk to the food bank, that they know you're their neighbor. They can reach out to you. They can have conversations with you. So it is really why I think it's very difficult, especially for folks of color, to connect with the ideas of abolition is, one, internalized racism is a real thing. Two, when we come to this land, like me, I'm an immigrant here. My family is from so-called Nigeria and Zimbabwe. And when we arrived on these lands, our perception of the police in comparison to the police of our homeland makes it difficult for us to understand that it's also bad here. Yeah. We're able to like put it in comparison to, you know, the past or what we've experienced elsewhere, not really coming to terms with the idea that, like, you know, any way you look at it, the police are a hammer and every single one of us is a nail, just waiting to get bopped. So yeah, that's why it's important when we're trying to build solidarity between all of our different groups. It's easy for us to fall apart when it comes to the police because we all have these deeply held myths about what their role is, what they do, who they serve. But at the end of the day, the thing that's going to bring us together in order to adequately respond to the rampant white supremacy that is surrounding us, i.e. check out Ottawa, is us all coming to an agreement that we have a role to play in community safety. The police are not actually out here solving crimes. They respond after the crime is done. Maybe they give you a shoulder rub and say, we'll give you a number and you can call us at a later date. But it's us preemptively building community that stops crime.
Well, it also reminds me, again, quoting Ruth Wilson Gilmer, not quoting, but one of the things that I read recently was also like abolition is also about addressing the conditions that led someone to incarceration.
Absolutely.
And when I read that, it was like, we call ourselves love intersections, but it also reframed that for me too, that absolutely abolition is the goal, but there's everything around it that it is unjust. And I love the way that you described it, Tonye, of like being able to call on our neighbor if we need something. That's a critical part of the relationship piece that we need to cultivate towards abolition. I really love that.
Tonye, can we just rewind your life a little bit? I'm so curious to hear about your childhood and what was it like growing up?
I grew up in the United Kingdom, England, which is super messed up if you are a racialized person growing up in the belly of the beast in terms of colonization, white supremacy, rampant, stealing of resources. My family, like I said earlier, is from so-called Nigeria, so-called Zimbabwe, both places that have suffered horrifically due to sanctions, due to resource extraction, due to, just political interference and my mom is in the background.
What did she say? What did Mom say?
What did you say, Mom? And theft of people, Mom said. Yes. They're absolutely right. But so growing up in England was kind of like a brainwashing almost. We were taught to respect the monarchy, to respect the state, to look at England as a liberating force around the world. And it was not until when I was 13 and moved to Canada, so-called Canada, I started like questioning that ideology and that truth that we all held to be true about England and the role they played around the world. Obviously, being a Black person, an African person growing up in England, experienced heaps of racism, heaps of microaggressions, all that kind of stuff, and experienced, unfortunately, more of that when I moved to Canada as a teen. I grew up as a teen in northern BC and Saskatchewan, so-called Prince Albert, and so-called Dawson Creek, BC. If any of you have heard of Dawson Creek or seen it in the news,
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
okay. Like, you will all understand why I chose to leave when I did. It's a
Yeah.
really, not to say there are wonderful people there, but it's a really difficult place to live, especially if you hold the views that I do. I'm queer, I'm non-binary. I believe that we only have one planet and that we should protect it. And Dawson Creek is like the oil and gas
I see.
community. You know,
Right.
it's tough. It's tough. It's tough.
Wow.
And when you have a community that is entirely dependent on oil and gas and there are no other options, if you're standing up and saying, maybe we shouldn't do this, that's not super safe.
Right.
That's not super safe. So that's kind of the experience that I had growing up. I lived in small towns, predominantly white people. One of a few, if not the only Black person in a space most of my life. And that, you know, a lot of the time continues in Vancouver, although we try to make it not so.
I'm curious, Tanya, what brought you to abolition work?
Wow. What brought me to thinking about abolition was my experiences as a person who uses drugs. I was diagnosed with a disease called MS in 2015, and the amount of accusations that I would, contend with from medical professionals and whatnot, accusing me of. I mean, there were some times that I was doing drug-seeking behavior. Like, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. There was times when I came in looking for pain meds for my back, that was real. But dealing with that and kind of uncovering the deeply racist practices that are inherent in healthcare. And then also choosing to make the decision before weed became legal to use cannabis as the way to treat, and mushrooms as the way to treat the symptoms that I was experiencing, and like recognizing the criminalization inherent in making a choice for yourself to medicate in a way that doesn't fit with the state's standards. That was the thing that made me really start thinking about whether abolition made sense.
Right.
That and the expert guidance of incredible human beings on the ground here in Vancouver. The folks at Vandu who are, I just love every single thing that they do. They're visionary. The folks at Dolph who have been doing incredible work, Crackdown podcast. These are the folks in Vancouver, anyway, that have really led me to understand that abolition is the only option if we want to actually save lives. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about tell us about Defund 604?
Yes, of course. So the Defund 604 Network is an abolitionist organizing collective made up of independent working groups that are collaborating and working together to support local initiatives that are abolitionist in nature, or to bring forward new policy, new ideas, new ways of being that will inspire the community to take that responsibility and play a role in providing a sense of safety for ourselves. The thing that I love the most about the Defund 604 Network is absolutely the relationship building, the ways that we have been able to connect with groups that are on the ground doing this work every day. Like, there are lots of us within the network who are at risk of criminalization, and there are many folks within the network who hold a lot of privilege. And the fact that we were able to come together and support each other's work and, you know, lighten the load for one here and like carry some stuff here and be of service is absolutely, especially throughout the pandemic, it's been really nourishing and affirming and healing.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about what were some of the activities during the pandemic when it was so hard to organize and go anywhere?
Yeah. Well, there are lots of folks within the network that don't have the luxury of choosing to go somewhere or not go somewhere. So a lot of the work that that we have been doing, especially lately, has been around street sweeps. So, for example, the city of Vancouver, in partnership with city workers and the VPD, do this process called a street sweep, where they go up and down the street and they take people's belongings and they turf them. The amount of times that they have stolen people's personal items, mobility aids, people's parents' ashes, family members' ashes, children's presents, like these are the kind of actions that, while we're all sitting at home isolating, the police don't stop their aggression. That carries on all day, every day. So that's part of the work that we've been doing. We did an incredible engagement in September where we gathered folks together, had a beautiful meal. We were getting community feedback. And I want to show off this. You can't really see how beautiful it is, but this incredible poster.
That looks amazing.
Which has all the feedback that we got from the community about how they want to respond to. Oh no, it's all right. It's okay, Mom.
Yes, thank you, Mom. Thank you, so Mom. Cute. Oh my goodness.
That's so
cute.
What a cutie. That's so sweet.
That's been a big focus of ours. The other thing that we've been doing a lot of work and organizing around is the murder of Jared Lee Lowndes by the Campbell River RCMP that happened on August 8th, 2021. July 8th, 2021. Thanks, Mom. And so just being able to come together as a network and create opportunities for, first of all, celebrating Jared's life, because the kind of reckless and vile reporting that was going on around that time about Jared, about his life, about his experience, is counter to, the man that this community knows and loves. So being able to come together and talk about Jared and celebrate Jared has been wonderful. And on that note, I want to do a little plug. On March 15th, it's the International Day Against Police Brutality, and we are going to be collaborating with Laura Holland, who is the mother of Jared, to present an outdoor art show. You can find all of the information about Jared, about his story, about his family, about ongoing calls to action that are being asked for by his family, by his community. You can find it at the link right there. And for more information about the action on March 15th, just head to the website or check out Defund's social media.
Thank you. I had a question around, my more recent journey to.
Sorry, sorry, 1 second.
No problem.
Mom.
You announced March 8th
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
That's
I love
so
your
cute.
mom.
I love
My
it.
mom is the best. Yo, just wait till I tell you what my mom said. They had to interrupt me to say, don't forget to tell them that there's also an action happening on March 8th at the RCMP E Division. Again, we will be rallying outside the RCMP E Division to hold the police accountable for the murder that they perpetrated. So yes, more information on that will be available through Justice for Jared or through Defund.
Can we interview your mom next?
Yes.
For a next future episode
Mom,
of Hot Pot. She's
So sweet.
amazing.
They will definitely be down. They will definitely be down.
Amazing.
It's been I'm in a very strange week. I think I alluded to earlier in our pre-interview. So you know that there's a convoy thing happening tomorrow.
What?
Yeah. What? Get out. And of course, there's a counter protest. I want to know what has, how has that affected you? Because in our pre-interview, you had mentioned you had a lot to say about that topic, and this perhaps is an appropriate time for us to get into that conversation. I'm realizing how much of a bubble I actually live in. My partner, not so much, in the sense that their community has just been fractured and split in all sorts of different directions. And this Freedom Convoy thing has really, negatively impacted their mental health, because their friends are, some of them are anti-vax and are in support of the convoys. So it's been causing just the shifts and the rifts in the community. So I'm wondering what your experience has been, and what's going on. I've just had to just throw it in there. Just go right in there.
Where do I start? First of all, I just want to say to every single soul that is listening, who has a person that they love, who is dear to them, who has chosen the convoy path, you are not alone. You are not alone. And be hopeful that today will be the day where, I don't know, a sense of reality sets in.
Yeah.
Because what's happening right now, from my perspective, I have to preface this by saying, clearly, I'm not a white person. I'm a Black person. I'm queer. I have a disability. I have a chronic illness. I'm immunocompromised. These are all of the lenses through which I have been doing my very darndest to survive this pandemic, right?
Yeah.
We've all been doing our level best. So to hear people come together and say, if you have, basically, this is what I hear. I know they're not saying it on the nose, but like, this is what I hear. If you have an underlying health condition, or you are immunocompromised or dealing with a chronic illness, you can die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, basically, I'm tired of this experience. I would like it to end, and I am willing to sacrifice those of you who are immunocompromised or who have chronic illnesses. And like, free will. Everybody can do whatever they want to do. You can make that choice for yourself if you want to. But as we are here having a conversation about abolition and community care, it's really difficult for me to square those actions with my own values to participate, which is why you don't see me on the convoy. That being said, I do know a lot of people who are down. And to be really honest, I can understand why. We have a really irresponsible government that has used this opportunity at every turn to not actually give people what they need to get through this period in a way that is safe for everyone. As always, they chose to tinker around the edges and help the folks who are just under middle class or above, so that those folks can have access to the supports and resources that they need. And other folks who fall beneath that, good luck. Throughout the course of this pandemic, we saw the government literally deciding to expand access to MAID, so medically assisted access to dying, rather than increase the amount of disability benefits in a way that would actually allow people to meet their own needs.
Yeah.
So like, at every turn, we are experiencing massive amounts of ableism, which is completely horrifying and awful. But this convoy, to me, is the physical manifestation of that.
Yeah.
And that, my dear friends, is eugenics, which is some Nazi shit. So,
Yeah.
excuse me if I come to the conclusion that y'all are Nazis.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I thankfully have had a very small number of relationships that have, faced some of these questions. And this, I won't lie, has been the hardest in terms of like, Jen and I have been trying to think through like undoing carceral logics, and thinking about transformative justice. I have a lot of challenges in this area, especially we're right in the thick of it.
Yep.
I a lot of challenges.
I'm telling you, as a person who spends all of my time thinking about this stuff, I'm not
Yeah.
even there yet.
Yeah.
I'm not even there yet. And that's
Yeah.
like, I feel a lot of guilt. Right now, normally I would just be like, hey, free will, they gotta do, but I'm with
Yeah.
friends, so I'm gonna say how it is. But yeah, this is a thing. This is why I was saying to folks at the beginning that if you have people in your life that you love, who you cannot choose to not have a relationship with, like, let's be real, non-white people, we don't like cut off our family members the same way that white people do, right? Like, you have to keep those folks around, and you've got to come up with ways. This is the challenge for all of us now that we've seen what's what and who's who. How do we come back together and have dialogue?
Yeah, my partner and I were just having this conversation. We were both kind of bonding over our shared anxieties now that BC lifted most of its restrictions. And then we both kind of simultaneously, as we were processing our anxieties around this, we're like, wait a second, we are adults, we are grown-ass people. We can still continue to remain at home. We can still choose not to go out and party, and it's what is stopping us. I think it's more there was like a social pressure all of a sudden, it's as if this invisible tape has been lifted, or and so I was like, okay, so I'm gonna keep the same routine. I'm not gonna make any drastic changes, but it was just an interesting mind shift in how we were approaching this like global pandemic anxiety, because I think we're having to live with COVID. So it's about, I guess it's about managing it at this point. I'm not even sure.
Which is terrifying.
It is terrifying.
That, again, that's some seriously genocidal shit, because it just comes to, it's like somebody got in a room to do the math, and they were like, yeah, we can live with that many people just...
Yeah. For the economy. Yeah. Yeah. I wanted. Tanya, I wanted to ask a question around. So I was mentioning this before. More recently, I've come to this conversation of abolition because I had a friend who was really badly racially profiled at UBC,
Right.
and so we've been thinking about this and organizing on campus this year about other types of policing and surveillance, and trying to think of ways to organize around that. What would you do? I'm just thinking. There's other. I know of other people who are facing similar situations of different types of policing and other, not necessarily the police. What would you suggest as sort of like entry level steps for folks who are wanting to address something like this?
And also, understanding and recognizing that the onus shouldn't be just on Black and Indigenous bodies and peoples to do the teaching. So I just want to put it out there.
Thank you. Well, there are lots of incredible groups across this great nation that have done very successful work in organizing to get police off campus, and also to start moving away from carceral logics that are held by teachers and principals as well. There's a group based out of so-called Ottawa that's called the Asilu Collective, ASILU Collective. You can find them on Twitter. I know that they have been doing really, really powerful organizing in so-called Ottawa. They actually were successful in removing the school resource officer program from Ottawa schools, so ODSB. And this is a thing that we always think we need to do brand new work. The work has actually already been done, and we don't need to replicate. All we need to do is build relationships and share strategies and tactics. So Asilu Collective is one that I would definitely look into. There's also a few other collectives connected to them that were involved in that ODSB work.
Hmm.
And I know that. Sorry, which university is it that you're at?
UBC, the worst. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Listen, we're gonna have
Yeah.
this conversation offline because I have
Yeah.
some tea to share with you in
Please
terms
do.
of who you might want to talk to. But yeah, I think that really what it comes down to is building those relationships with folks that are already doing the work and coming
Mhm.
together to have conversations about alternatives.
Mm.
Two, and then third is none of this is going to work if people are not dedicated to putting in physical time and energy to actually not being the police, but the gap that the police are serving,
Right.
that gap
Mhm.
needs to be filled somehow. So I
Yeah.
think, it's just about building that trust so that you can delve into that work and know that it's supported. And just knowing that going against the caps ain't fun.
Yeah. On that topic. I'm also curious if you might be able to share with our audience what's happening in Vancouver. I've been, watching some of the organizing from the periphery. I saw that the police budget increased this year again. What type of organizing is happening, and yeah, maybe how can people get involved?
Absolutely. Okay, so there's, I think I mentioned some of the things that we're actively working on right now as a network. The first being street sweeps.
Mhm.
As a network, we are really dedicated to and focused on making sure that our abolition is in action, that the work that we're doing is in service to folks who are at the most risk of criminalization, of policing, and potential time in prison. We're also, so street sweeps is one. And then the second one is, Justice for Jared. Like that, the story of Jared and his beautiful family, and how folks have been able to come together to consistently mark the anniversary of his passing every month. Every month since he's passed, there's been a different action, whether that's a banner drop or handing out food. We did one that was called FTP, Feed the People, or Fuck the Police.
Oh, that's good. I love that.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
like I said, like my mom said, there'll be another action on March 8th, but March 15th. And we are always, always, always looking for new people to participate in this work. Defund 604, info at defund604.com is the email address if you want to reach out and talk to somebody about joining and participating in this work. Also, we're always fundraising, and thank you so much to you for the fundraiser. Look at this! I used it to give someone weed recently. I know that's not what it's for, but
No,
No. It absolutely is. Yeah, listen, we got in trouble for that, right? For the red envelope that somebody had DM'd David personally. I think it was on your personal account.
No, it was on our on our account.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but they were so they were saying, and this was a Chinese person saying that but this is a symbol of happiness and auspiciousness,
Prosperity should be abundance.
why are you putting this message of hate? And exactly
that's not
that
a
reaction.
message of hate.
Yes.
That's a message
Exactly.
of love.
Yes.
That's when I see defund, disarm, disband the police, my heart swells because it makes me think about how resourced, how nourished, how fulfilled my community would be if that happened. And this envelope, if we defunded the police, this envelope will be full right now.
Yes.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's wild. But I'm sorry you got that little bit of hate mail, but I know you held your own.
It happens.
Yeah, well, and I write you. I also Jen and I had a conversation. I mean, this is the conversations that are happening in our communities. So,
Yeah.
speaking of which, I want Tanya, and when we spoke before this talk, you were also you mentioned, and this has stuck with me, normalizing conversations about abolition.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and about what that means, and
I would imagine this episode would be like normalizing
This is
Conversations
it
about
in action. Yeah. Well, this is the thing. When there's something about this language that really triggers people
Yeah.
and makes them shut down immediately. And I personally, I don't understand it because I'm an abolitionist and I can
Right.
understand the value in taking funds from a racist, genocidal police force
Mm-hmm.
and investing into the community. That's a no-brainer for me, no problem, no issue. But really what it comes down to, normalizing abolition, is just having conversations about the actual solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
rather than, it sucks to say this because it's like, it's that same thing that people say about, I don't like the way you protest. You shouldn't protest that way. You know, I really don't like the way the convoys. This is something that I've struggled with because I'm like, I don't like the way they're protesting, obviously, but like,
Right.
It's
everybody should.
tacky.
Everybody. The hot tub, like, dude, you're filthy. That
Oh
thing
no.
is filthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is the thing though. Like, if we want to normalize abolition, it's really about, to me anyway, skipping the word defund, skipping the word abolition even, and just focusing on the root cause solutions. I know that sucks. It feels kind of icky and political, but if you want to have a conversation with your grandfather
Yeah.
about why he should give up the dough and donate to Defund 604, that might be the strategy that you need to take. Or if you want to try and convince somebody that, you know, calling the police is not having the desired effect that people think it is, you know, having conversations about how things used to be, how we respond as a community, where we came from, how we responded 100 years ago or 200 years ago before police were an actual institution. I think that's what it is. What normalizing abolition is just about having frank and honest conversations about why we don't want to take responsibility for ourselves or each other.
Bingo.
Yeah.
I think what's so difficult for, you know, East Asian communities to have this conversation or even to approach this conversation, and David, we've talked at length about this, is that our parents just don't want to subvert anything. They just want, my parents just want me to fit in, to be as quote unquote normal, conventional. And they themselves, I will give them credit, are very non-conventional, very alternative, you know, people. They chose to only have one child only, who's a woman, a daughter. And my mom was the first kind of feminist role model that I've ever known in my life, right? But they still fall in this kind of like model minority, good, upstanding citizen, respectability politic type of parents. You know, don't call attention to yourself or else you'll get in trouble, right? So it's very difficult to break away from that and to have them kind of confront something that is so messy and nasty. You know, again, like you said it so perfectly. They don't want to take responsibility for that.
Well, it also makes me think of, like, you know, and this is linked to the policing because I share, well, my parents are a little bit more traditional than yours. But, you know, like this ascribing to the model minority and ascribing to nationalism and citizenship, which East Asians in particular, but a lot of immigrants, you know, are we have to be grateful for the nation state.
Yes.
So I remember going to every Canada Day celebration when I was a kid because it's that type of like, we should be grateful here. And this is linked again to the Stop Asian Hate, like, you know, we are Canadians too placards, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But I recently watched, I've been watching my dad actually largely, well, the unmarked graves on residential schools, but even prior to that, I forget where he was. He was on a tour somewhere, and there they went on the tour took them to a reservation, and this person from that community shared with him the story of residential schools in this context, and this is in the U.S. And I watched my dad really sort of shift all of a sudden, like recognizing all of the things that that we all ascribed to in terms of the nation state, all just start to fall apart. And I mean, this was very frustrating to me because as a feminist,
No kidding.
for like 20 years, I've been talking about this, and like it took a vacation.
David is so insulted that
Yes, I understand.
Yeah, but I think I wanted to bring that up too because it also takes time.
Yeah.
And it I probably as a younger person was very around these issues, and it took someone human and to share something that really evoked something. And so I'm thinking, even though I'm frustrated, but it's also encouraging to see that people go on their own journey on this as well, and it takes time.
Even as you're saying, I also couldn't help but feel the sense of like loss because, Tanya, looking at your relationship with your mom, who is like in the background, helping out and filling in the conversation, you have no idea that I'm so, so envious of that. I don't, and Dave and I talked about this all the time. I don't have that kind of relationship with my parents. There's a huge, not only there's a huge like language barrier, and not just that I have to speak very broken Mandarin with them, but the language barrier in the kind of like politic and how both of us understand each other in different contexts. Like they will forever see me as this Taiwanese baby that they brought over. And so it's very, very difficult to just tell them in a language that I can't really access, the complexities of who I am and what I believe in and what my vision is for the future. So to see the way that you and your mom kind of are with each other is such a gift, because it is a possibility.
Let me tell you, this is my chosen mom. My biological mom, I haven't seen them in 22 years. They live in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So I appreciate so much what you're saying. And I appreciate it because I actually didn't have that close kind of relationship. And being here in so-called Canada, one of the things that I'm super grateful for is the chosen family that I have found here, and the people that I'm able to connect with and relate with who understand the complexity of like how messed up what we're living through is. And my mom is from Stalo First Nation. They are a beautiful, beautiful human being. Their name is Quetzalcoatl. They're currently suing the government for $171.5 million because they are some racialists. And it's been my honor and my pleasure to sit with them and put in like probably 100 hours of like legal study and work into supporting them on this case. And that is the thing that makes me passionate about abolition, is that it breeds relationship.
Yeah.
It really does. It breeds trust, it breeds relationship, and it breeds a sense of collective. Man, I sound like a conservative, but I keep coming back to this idea of collective responsibility, but it's true.
Yeah.
We are all that each other has, and we keep us safe. These cops would rather see us die. Like, they don't care. They don't care.
Well said.
And yeah, so thank you for shouting out my chosen mama. And shout out to my real mom, because she's great too. But,
So we only have 9 minutes left of the hour, but I couldn't help but keep staring at what's behind you. You've got all these guitars hung up. I'm just wondering if you can, you're a musician. You're an artist. Can you tell us what you've been working on? What are your plans for the future? What are you working on now?
Well, when the pandemic kicked off, I tried to get into the whole online thing, but because I have a neurological disease, right? So spending a lot of time doing computer stuff is like my worst enemy. So I took it as an invitation to like deepen my understanding on the other aspects of myself that I was super passionate about. And for me, that was looking around my community, hearing people call me up and like disclose to me that they've been, a victim of sexual violence or something like that, I decided to go and take crisis and violence intervention training and become a crisis line worker. So I do that. Do a lot of outreach, street outreach with the Battered Women Support Services outreach team. Shout out Angela Marie McDougall. You went right before me. Basically my boss. So they're not mad about this interview. But so definitely been spending a lot of time doing that, organizing with the Defund 604 network, and launching Ethos Lab, which is an innovation academy focused on STEM education, science, technology, engineering, applied arts, math, mixed media, music, production a little bit, and really enjoying working with these youth, running the leadership program, and trying basically to make an army of baby abolitionists. Sorry, parents, I'm giving it away. Now you know what we're up to in there.
Hey, we love infiltrating. That's the plan.
If these convoyers can go around infiltrating, I can infiltrate too. And then finally, you asked about music. I'm so grateful for the pandemic because it reminded me that music is where I go when I feel so lost. And it really turned back into my hiding place rather than the place where for the last decade I have been so very public. And so I have a new project that I'm working on, which has been cooking over the course of the pandemic. We're in and out of the studio working on it. And it's inspired by this moment, just every single grassroots movement that I've seen, every beautiful mutual aid project that's popped up, every person I've seen standing alone, shouting against a convoy, every person who's laid down in front of a giant truck and then gotten arrested by the police. Shout out Taz, I love you. Like, this collection of music is my love song to those of us who, for some reason, give a shit and can't stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And to those of you who use the pandemic to make albums about going partying and I'm going on vacation, I forgive you because we all have to survive somehow.
That's very generous.
I saw somebody, I don't have Instagram and Facebook anymore, but somebody told me that someone we know was in Mexico being like, my freedom! And I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Bro, you got on a plane. Are you tripping?
I know someone like that as well. First they were spewing anti-vax stuff around the mandate. And this was like all over their timeline, right? And the next thing I know, they're in Mexico espousing this is the most free and freedom that I'm experiencing. Yeah, it's messed up.
Yo, I understand where folks are coming from. I think that the passports were put out in a way that immediately basically criminalized people, which is not cool. I can agree up to a certain point that like mandates should change and morph when we have information. But like I said before, we have a government that has actively been providing the wrong or not enough information this whole time. So I don't understand. I can see why people would rise up, honestly. Do I agree? Will I rise up with them? No.
Yeah.
Will I rise
freedom,
up and...
free will, like you said, but it doesn't mean freedom, free from consequences. So,
yo, we all gotta pay. We all gotta pay. I do drugs. I have a hangover the next day. I slap someone in the face. I maybe cop a charge. Like, I do a convoy.
Yeah.
La 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 la.
I think we're almost running out of time. How did that happen?
I don't know.
We should.
We have to ask our.
Yes.
You ask.
Yeah. So we ask all of our guests this. What is your favorite hot pot ingredient or experience? My favorite hot pot
pot, ingredient, and or experience? I would say my favorite ingredient is mushrooms, because
Yeah.
mushrooms are
The best.
off the chain. Off
It's
the
the
chain.
best.
I will say this though, it's been a minute since I had a hot pot, and I think that I would like to do that. Maybe with you.
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe we can have a hot pot.
Although it's not the most COVID safe.
No, it's not the most COVID.
It's shared
Yeah.
Okay,
in a
listen,
pot.
maybe we have our own individual.
We can have
hot pot.
our separate individual
Yeah.
pots.
Yeah. Well,
That would be lovely.
my family is so obsessed with it. We actually have like 2, sometimes 3. And there's only 5 of us because we want multiple soups. And everyone wants their own thing, so we're just like have like pot.
Legit. I'm coming to your house.
Yeah. Thank you
Well,
so much.
thank you so
Tonye.
much, Tanya. This has
My
been
pleasure.
such a pleasure. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for having me. Go forth and conquer. Don't let the police get you down, because they're all bastards.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
don't
you.
don't go away. We're gonna say bye after this.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm such a fan of Tanya. I'm so inspired. I'm in love.
And just another reminder, we are giving away, for those people who are watching, lots of merch. There's stickers, there's magnets, there's tote bags. So all you have to do is go to either Value Co-op or Love Intersections Instagrams, tag us, tag 3 friends, share a post. And we have lots of merch to give away. So.
You just want to give away because we have so much stock.
And they're just so pretty. Look at them. I wanted one more quick thing before we go. Like this is a collage piece by Jay Kabalu, and he's layered in all of these different themes as we opened with, like defund the police, boba liberalism. There's even some Edward Said in there for you theory nerds. So these are hot.
All
Okay,
right.
I'll stop.
Have a
See
good
you.
night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.